right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Redskins Roundtable. Today's guest is going to be an individual that I've had on my show before. He's going to be making a regular appearance on my BFG show and some of my future programs, and decided to come up with a new episode today to kind of introduce him. For those of you that took a look at my videos and want to know who the heck is this guy, this is going to be that video where we're going to kind of get a little bit of a background story, kind of get to know him better. It's going by the name of Naysayer. Naysayer is actually a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for a very, very long time. Redskin fans, diehards. We've been watching games together. We've been watching games together for quite a while. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Naysayer. Naysayer, hey, buddy, say hi to the crowd for me.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me on the show, BFG. I really appreciate it. Love the show. I'm glad I can be on.
Yeah, and pretty much like we were kind of talking about off camera here. You're not an actual a vid maker, at least not yet. I haven't quite coerced you into doing that on your own yet. But you know, coming up with a series of questions for you has been a little bit different than it would be for most people that I would have on my show, because we're not going to be referencing anything that you've done as far as your past works on YouTube. But I think we're going to kind of go into a little bit of the background here as far as your experience level goes. How long have you been watching Redskins football?
Oh my God, I've been watching Redskins football since I was 4 or 5 years old. I remember them playing the Raiders in the Super Bowl, the one in which they actually lost. That year was kind of heartbreaking, but I've been a diehard Burgundy gold bleeding Redskin fan all my life.
I hear that. In fact, I think you and I probably became fans of the same game. I became a fan after that game was over, too. I was a little bit older. In fact, I still have nightmares of Marcus Allen running all over us, and that's no lie. I mean, I remember several plays where he, took it to the bank against us. Just absolutely nightmarish memories. I'm pretty sure you can relate.
Oh yeah, But you gotta love the old Hogs, old Joe Gibbs. Of course, my favorite player of all time is Darrell Green. I mean, I remember him obviously chasing down Tony Dorsett from behind and the punt return against the Bears and the Hogs and Riggins and all that. When you're a kid, you see that, and I just fell in love with them way back when, and I've been sticking with them ever since.
Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, I do recall the last Super Bowl championship that we had won. I do believe we witnessed that together, did we not?
Yeah, actually, I think we did. Yeah, against the Bills. I remember that game. Yeah, I remember I was in middle school at the time, and I won $100 off a kid that we're going to win that game. Matter of fact, you know what? I never did collect that $100. So
never did collect.
Oh, yeah, I never did. So if you're out there watching this, you still owe me $100.
Absolutely. Imagine the surprise in his face when you come to collect some 20, 30 years later. Yeah, I do believe I was a senior in high school when that game came out. That was probably one of the highlights of my life as a senior. Just having the chance to go on outside of high school and continue to play football. I was still in that mode of excitement, and then to have your favorite football team just pretty much get a run at the Super Bowl and go against the Buffalo Bills. And every year I recall the last 3 years we've been to a Super Bowl, you always get that inclination that you're not going to win it. And then especially in that game, we completely dominated that Buffalo Bill football team, and a lot of Seahawk fans out there, I'm pretty sure, can relate to this. But a butt whooping in the Super Bowl is not exciting to anybody but the fans, the team that are watching it. And I remember that game, we were whooping the Bills from pillar to post, and it was probably one of the greatest things that I've ever seen in my life.
That's right, and I remember it all started with Thurman Thomas forgetting his helmet.
Absolutely.
That was the key to the whole game right there.
Absolutely. And I remember they mentioned a couple times in that game they couldn't believe he forgot his helmet. They couldn't figure out why this backup was in there. I mean, Thurman Thomas was like the man. He was like the league leader. Even in the regular season, he was like one of the league leaders for rushing.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, to fire off some couple questions here for you. The first one that I've got is I kind of wanted to get an idea as far as what your experience level is with a lot of the if there is, in fact, if there's any experience you have with any of the other NFL vid makers that are out there on YouTube. Is this something that you kind of peruse through every once in a while? Do you not really pay too much attention to it? Or is this something you are religiously going out and doing? Are you kind of keeping up on what other video makers are doing out there as far as the NFL fan base goes? Or what's your experience level with that?
Well, as far as videos are concerned, I mean, I obviously watch your show a lot. I watch Louis T a little bit, Andre. But other than that, scouring the internet for videos are concerned. I don't watch a whole lot more than that. Most of the video makers out there are actually, in Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, obviously.
Yep.
But, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to, the Dukes and LeVar show, obviously, ESPN 980. And I relentlessly scour the internet, looking at WashingtonPost.com, Bleacher Report, NFL News, various sites on the web. So I try to keep in touch as much as I can with, not only our team but other teams in our division. Obviously, the Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants. So I'm religiously always scouring the web, looking at things. So that's most of my experience, though. It's been you, Louis T, and Andre, and all three of you actually do a really good job. Really.
Yeah, there's a couple of us out there. I have to admit, as a fan, it's a lot more fun to watch Redskin vidmakers. I mean, it really is. Kind of get the opinion of other individuals out there, and it's only when you really, really want to get a little mental, like myself, and start watching people who are posting Raider videos and Charger videos. It's not all that kind of fun, but every once in a while, it's kind of nice to see how delusional other fans can get, along with yourself. But I will admit, I know your process probably a lot better than most, and I have to admit, you are probably the one guy that definitely has a daily routine where you are constantly, in fact, you're way better at this than I am, but you are constantly scouring the internet for, you follow certain beat writers, you follow certain, you read a lot of different stuff, whether it's Washington Post or what have you, and if, the NFL.com, you're going out there and you're constantly keeping yourself updated with current affairs as far as Redskin news goes. Kind of ballpark figure, how long would you say you've been keeping that up?
Oh gosh, I've been really following the internet more and more ever since I got married. Gives me something else to do. No, I've been following them hardcore on the internet and stuff for the last, I don't know, 4 years. But I've always been, like you, a big time diehard Redskin fan. So we always obviously pay attention to the Redskins. But I've been trying to branch out a little bit more into other teams in the NFL or the teams in the division. And so I try to see the players that they're acquiring or losing, the coaching staffs. So that's kind of what my main focus is on that.
Yeah. What would you say is like your routine? As far as when it comes to gathering this information, is there a particular step process that you go through? I mean, is it you focus completely on a couple individuals and you want to see what it is they're putting out, or do you follow specific websites? Then kind of whenever there's not much out there, you start looking at videos. I mean, how does your process go about as far as your daily routine?
Well, most of the breaking news happens with, you got big-time NFL beat writers like Adam Schefter, John Kimes, another one that does a good job. So I get on Bleacher Report and I see a lot of up-to-the-minute breaking news type stuff or, different articles. And then I can go into detail by going to see, I read a lot of Mike Jones columns.
Yeah.
Of course, there's Sally Jenkins. I don't really care for her too much, but there's other people at the Post that do a great job, but and then Hogs Haven is another good forum to get on. Yeah, that's a great forum to get on. So it's funny because I got this routine every morning when I wake up. The first thing I do is I get on the Bleacher Report as the first thing. But of course, we live on the West Coast out here, so we're 3 hours behind. So you get up at 5 a.m. You everything out there is already 3 hours ahead.
Yeah. So you can receive updated information at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's kind of weird how it works that way. But there've been a couple of occasions that I can recall where I've woken up in the morning. It's 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, and the first text that I've gotten from you is that WTF text, and like, what the hell are we doing? Did you see that we did this? And it's like, oh man, that's it's a heck of a way to greet the morning is to find out bad Redskins news. But after doing it for so long, you end up getting kind of used to it. It's not that often you get good news anymore, but you're definitely right about that.
Yeah, you love being woken up at 6 a.m. to a text that says, "You'll never get this. We just signed Tracy Porter." You're going, oh my God, I'm gonna go to bed. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So that it's really good for segueing into the next question. What would you say, to explain to our fans, what would you say is the meaning behind your online handle? What is the meaning behind your name, and how does it attribute to you?
Being called Naysayer. Well, a lot of people kind of say that I'm a pessimist, I guess, and I probably am to some degree, but I'm also a realist, and I know, and everybody out there watching your show that's a Redskin fan knows, we've been bottom of the division 5 out of the 6 last years, so, other than 2 years ago. So we have a lot of experience with a lot of heartbreak, obviously, and so when I'm watching games with you too, it's hilarious because I'm always screaming at the TV and jumping up and down, and and you're a lot more calmer and mild manner. But I'm always going to love the burgundy and gold. I'm always going to be a Redskin fan. But there's a lot of things. Sometimes I just want to bang my head against the wall like Gus Frerotte did, in Dallas. Because we've experienced a lot of heartbreak in the last long time. You look at coaching changes and personnel changes. So I'm a little bit. I try to be positive and upbeat, but I'm a little sarcastic and I'm kind of a pessimist by nature. So that's I thought it was fitting for your show.
Yeah. It's definitely fitting for the show. It's definitely fitting, for you, for those of us individuals that know you. I think that throughout the years, especially since when Jack Kent Cooke passed away, and I remember that when that happened very vividly, and I'm sure you do as well as a lot of members of our audience, and we found out that this young Daniel Snyder character had taken over the team. We had I remember very vividly at the time, we obviously had some complaints about our team and the direction that we were going, and we wanted to get back to another championship, and we thought that maybe things were going to be changed with this new owner coming in here. And obviously we have been introduced to anything but that. We haven't seen a Super Bowl since Cook had owned the team, and we've experienced, especially 10 years there, of just absolute embarrassing football. And I think that's kind of where a lot of, in my opinion, especially this new generation, that's something to take into account here, is this new generation of Redskin fans, that's all they know. And that's something that's been covered a couple times in at least in some radio outlets that are out there. They said we got a whole generation of young men and women that are Redskin fans that have never seen a parade, that have never seen a championship, or Redskins team players hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. And for those of us that have, we've experienced so much lethargy here in the last 20-some years that it's not hard to be pessimistic. It's not hard to watch a game and go, here we go, that's the Redskins team I know. And Lord knows you and I have done that many, many times when it comes to watching football games.
Yeah. Oh, it makes you want to pull your hair out when you think about all the Redskins, you think about all the quarterback changes that they've had the last 10 years, all the coaching changes, obviously. It's just there's never been any stability in that organization since Daniel Snyder's taken the team over. I wouldn't totally blame it on Snyder. I think he's kind of gotten a little more laid back, but the way that we run our franchise, it's just like Dallas. Look at Dallas with Jerry Jones. They don't have a GM, and they haven't been to the Super Bowl since the '90s. So it's kind of the same deal. I think everything starts at the top with the owner and trickles down. And obviously, I would love for the Redskins to get a real bona fide GM, somebody like a Morocco Brown, and have Bruce Allen be the vice president, and have Snyder just step away, and just kind of let them take care of the football aspect of it.
That's been communicated several times from a lot of different media conglomerates that are out there, and even a lot of fans have mentioned something along those lines. I definitely think that Allen is a very, very talented individual when it comes to the paperwork end of this franchise. When it comes to fixing and negotiating contracts, the guy's a great glad handler. He's that guy you want to throw out there with the $1 million haircut and the $1 million smile to represent your team. But when it comes to actual GM work in the avenue of analyzing talent, it's not necessarily his strongest suit. So I'm right there with you. I kind of share the same opinion as far as bumping him to president, kind of keep letting him doing what it is that he do, but get somebody in that GM role that's going to be able to do that job, to the best of their ability, and hopefully get some improvement.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, the next question I got is, in your years of following this team and various writers that are out there, this is something you kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, and I kind of want to go into a little bit more in depth. Which writers out there are individuals that you enjoy when they come out with an article and you kind of get a little bit excited to read whatever it is they put out, as opposed to the writers that are out there that drive you absolutely up the wall?
like Kornheiser and Wilbon drive me up a wall. Those guys, those two
Our
are,
cars in the same garage, my friend.
yeah, and Sally Jenkins even too. If you think I'm a pessimist with my name Naysayer, I mean, all three of them are fire and brimstone type. And of course, Wilbon and Kornheiser have the Part in the Eruption show on ESPN, and so they have a lot more of a forum. But I don't know. I like writers that try to be objective, but also, not everything is doom and gloom. But then again, I don't want a writer coming out saying, okay, we got Jason Hatcher, he's going to get 15 sacks next year and we're going to go to the Super Bowl. I like a happy medium.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I mean, I like Mike Jones a lot. I really do. And then, there's a lot of guys that report on the Redskins, like John Keim does a pretty good job. And so that's mostly the stuff that I tend to gravitate towards.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I know the ones that I really, really enjoy reading, and it's not too often that you get this, but the ones that travel with the team. And, well, everybody can sit here and debate what it is they see on TV, or they can debate whatever it is that they see in spring training or OTAs or what have you. But when you get that beat writer that actually has that full access to the players in the background and on the sidelines and in the locker rooms, when they of course have to be a little bit picky and choosy on what it is they put out there on paper, but also they can. I've found, especially last season was probably one of the most unique off seasons that I had ever seen in Redskins history, and that was probably because we had just won, a division championship, and there was a lot of excitement going into the season, but there was also a lot of worry because we had a quarterback with a bum knee, and there was a lot of stuff going on there in the background that, as we were seeing it, we were commenting on it, and God knows there was every writer from here to Timbuktu that was writing on it, reporting it, but you only had a couple beat writers that actually had that backstage access to kind of knew the mood a little bit. And I really enjoy writers that kind of bring you into that situation. Like, I was talking to Robert Griffin III the other day, and I kind of get the impression that I kind of get the impression that that. I kind of enjoy reading stuff about that you wouldn't necessarily see from a normal show.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And another thing too about newspapers are kind of going obsolete. Everything's online now.
Absolutely.
And as far as Washington Post and big newspapers like that, the subscriptions are dwindling. It's all on the internet now. And then, with Twitter and, various different kinds of formats, media formats like Bleacher Report, this and that, good newspaper writing, good articles, sports columnists that cover the Redskins or any other team, it's kind of going by the wayside.
Yeah.
It is. It's to your point too. Another interesting thing about that is that's why I personally like listening to like LeVar Arrington, on his show, Chris Cooley, because those are players that played there.
Absolutely.
They know coaching, they know the coaches, they know a lot of the ex-players. It's kind of interesting to get their take on what's going on with the Redskins.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny you bring those individuals up because Chris Cooley is just getting into that market. He's just getting into the the radio scene, and he's probably one of the most influential individuals that's on radio right now because he's just recently retired from that arena. So he knows a lot of the personnel. He knows a lot about how that the Redskin organization works in the background. I mean, LeVar's been retired from that for a couple of years. I think 2006 may have been his last season. So he's been away, and even then he was playing in New York when he stopped. But, still, I like getting the opinions of individuals that have actually played the sport because it kind of circumvents a lot of the opinions of people out there that haven't played, like Skip Bayless, that do their eye test crap. It's really kind of refreshing to have a voice, and I say this every once in a while, but it's nice to have a voice from a former player who was able to contradict those guys and say, look, it's not that simple, it's not that easy. When you're a player and you're out there on the field, this is what you have to look forward to. And it's really kind of nice for the fans who don't necessarily know what that's like. I mean, I've never played at a professional level. I would imagine it's a hell of a lot faster than high school or college, and they communicate this, and they are able to kind of break down why. But I've just recently gotten into listening to Chris Cooley, and I have to admit, he's actually pretty talented at doing that. I don't even think LeVar's going to be doing the radio show much longer here, in my opinion. I'm predicting that now that he's got his feet wet, with the NFL Network, I think that's kind of where he's going to start gravitating towards.
Either that, or he'll try out for arena football team. Maybe TO or something.
Well, he's also talked about throwing his hat into coaching. That could be a possibility as well. I think he'd be a talented coach. Whether he's going to be able to communicate, well with other players, that remains to be seen. There's a lot of former players out there that just don't make great coaches. So I mean, you never know, I guess, unless you try. So I guess when it comes to watching, as far as the visual media goes, and going on television and watching, whether it's Total Access or whether it's NFL Network or ESPN. Are these shows that you spend a little bit of time watching as well and keeping up on, or is this pretty much whenever you get your downtime? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, well, being married and having a kid, it's basically, and working, it's whenever I get my downtime. But, I mean, NFL Network's all right, obviously, and ESPN and this and that. But, it's just for general information, It's kind of hard living out here on the West Coast, as you well know, that we can't, unless we get on the internet, we can't access Redskins Live or any of those programs. So,
yeah.
But that's, as far as national media is concerned, yeah, obviously I'm always watching NFL Network, ESPN. So, yeah.
So you got, is there any particular individual out there, as far as whether it's the NFL Network or what have you, is there anybody that comes on that you acutely listen to, that whenever they go to mention something, it's, hey, I got to pay attention to this guy because he knows what he's talking about? Is there any particular favorite that you got?
Rich Eisen. No, I'm kidding.
Rich Eisen.
Rich Eisen, running the 40 at the combine.
40 at the combine.
I don't know. You got all these talking heads. You got all these players and former players on, like, the NFL Network, obviously, and giving their predictions and their opinions on teams and players and draft moves and free agency and all this stuff all the time. It's funny. And then, of course, you've got all these guru geniuses for the draft coming up. Like, all you see right now is Mike Mayock and Mel Kiper Jr., and assessing different team needs, trying to predict after free agency, what teams are going to draft who and when and this and that. But, I think Mike Mayock has a pretty good
he is very good.
draft. And I tell you, sometimes I like listening to the ex-coaches. You listen to, like, Brian. I think Brian Billick and Steve Mariucci actually are good coaches to listen to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love listening to Mike Mayock. Mike Mayock's one of those rare guys out there that puts in a lot of video time and has a very, very acute eye, has very good opinions on football.
Yeah, absolutely. From being a 5'8" ex-defensive back at UConn or wherever he played, I don't know. Yeah. No, he's a heck of a better commentator and analyst than he is a football player. That's for sure.
So, are there any other NFL franchises out there that you kind of keep up to date on, as opposed, other than the Redskins, or the Redskins are pretty much a team you exclusively follow?
Oh, Redskins are a team I try to exclusively follow, although obviously as well as I do, living out here in the Pacific Northwest, we're force-fed Seahawk all the time, and it just drives you up a wall. I mean, Russell Wilson is the second coming of Christ out here, and he's a great kid. He's a heck of a good quarterback, but that's all you see. And of course, since they won the Super Bowl, it's all out here is nothing but Seahawks all the time. So it's hard to get away from that, obviously, because that's all you see in the papers and local TV here. But I try to keep up to date a little bit, like I said, in the division, because as a Redskin fan, you want to know what the other teams are doing. What coaches are coming and going, and so. But that's just. It's not like I get in depth with, like, the Oakland Raiders or the Cleveland Browns or.
Oh, come on now.
Oh, come on! I'm a huge Jacksonville Jaguar.
Absolutely.
Jaguar app on my phone right now. I can't wait to read it to see who else they picked up. So it's mostly Redskins, obviously, but it's I don't like football to me is the best game, obviously. Out of any sport in the whole world, So, I follow that a lot more than I follow, table tennis or air hockey or curling.
But they're creeping up on football, I'm sure.
Yeah, all the shooting sports. So.
So from when the Super Bowl ends, when that clock winds down to 0, to Week 1 kickoff, we've got several months there in between where there's not much going on. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on television, and I'm actually kind of, if this is an idea as to how big the NFL Network is, you're talking about an off-season of downtime where there's not really much going on. People are going on vacations, people are getting surgeries, rehabbing, getting ready for the next season. But this machine that is the NFL is still chugging right along, and they're still able to get really, really high Nielsen numbers as far as combine coverage, as far as draft coverage, even going on into the camps and the OTAs. In between that time, kind of a different question here. What is the one part about the offseason that you can't stand?
The one part about the offseason I can't stand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm praying that no Redskins get arrested. That's number one. I hope Trent Williams doesn't get another bar fight in Hawaii. That would be bad. No, this is a downtime. It's funny because free agency this year, obviously we're in week 3 free agency, I think. Yeah. And so it's all the big names obviously are already gone for the most part. And this has been a really quiet free agency period for the Redskins this year, which some fans don't mind. I personally like the fact that we didn't get a big name player because of salary cap issues and other reasons. But this time, everybody's getting ready for the draft too. Manziel had his pro day yesterday. And so everybody's getting geared up for the draft. But I think after the OTAs, and the OTAs for the Redskins, I believe, start on the 7th of April. After the OTAs, there's a huge lull. There's it's going to be a 2-month lull, I believe. And they pushed the draft back another month this year. So we're coming into a time right now where this is kind of a bad time of year for the NFL. I mean, there's not big name stuff going on right now. Although Deshaun Jackson did get released from the Eagles today, so I guess that's big, huge news.
Every once in a while, you'll get that. You'll get some kind of big updating news that's worth that's worthy of note. So when it comes to your beloved Redskins, what are the games in the regular season that that make you the most nervous, and why?
Well, I obviously, like any other Redskin fan, I get worked up when we play the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a no-brainer. Every time we play the Cowboys, I get really tuned in for that, and obviously any other division game. But to me too, another thing that drives me absolutely nuts about the Redskins, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but for the most part, the Redskins the last 5 years, anytime you play a team or they play a team, for the most part, that you think should just totally dominate them, right?
Yeah.
Like the Broncos last year. The first half, it was so good, and then D'Angelo Hall had that pick after halftime, and then it just all fell apart. But for the most part, the Redskins, when they play superior competition, they play up to that level. But when they play teams that are awful, that they should just beat, they just never have been able to do that. And I can't ever figure out why that is.
Yeah.
Every time we go up against a Cleveland or a Oakland or a Jacksonville, all of a sudden it's a slugfest.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many times you look at these mediocre quarterbacks in the NFL the last few years too, and they've been able just to light up the Redskins. Sam Bradford, for example, for the Rams, every time we play Sam Bradford, the guy he torches us, So when we play those kind of games, I guess I get a little worked up. Although 2 years ago it was nice when we were having such a nice year, and RG3 before he got hurt was on point, and Morris, and we had some big good wins. Obviously the Cowboy game on Thanksgiving was one of the best games I've ever seen.
Yes.
So those are the games that I really get worked up for, is the Cowboys and other division games, I would say.
Does it matter who's home and away? I mean, is there one particular game that scares you more as far as us being in their home or them being in ours?
Honestly, I really don't see that much. I don't see much of an advantage to being home or away. I mean, you could say crowd noise might have a factor. That's obviously, Seahawks have the loudest stadium in the NFL, according to them or whatever. But, and that can contribute to penalties and dictate the flow of a game. But, being home or away, I've never had the luxury like you to go to FedEx Field and see a Redskin game. So I definitely want to do that. It's on my bucket list. But yeah, I don't take too much stock into home or away games.
Okay. I guess the next question I got for you is, as the NFL as a brand has grown in the last 10 years, the league has taken measures to pretty much kind of cinch up their image. The recent scientific information that's come out as far as concussions go, followed by the lawsuit that has hit the league, and all the other things that have kind of contributed as far as some recent changes in the league. There have obviously been some rule changes. Some of them have probably been a little bit more harsh than others. What is your impression of today's NFL, and at least today's NFL from a fan's experience perspective, as opposed to the wide open Wild Wild West days of yesteryear when we used to watch when we were younger?
I think it's really kind of diluted the game. Obviously, I think everything now with the rules, heavily favor the offense. If you look back in the early '80s and the '70s and before that with the NFL, I mean, you look at some of like, for example, Dan Marino's passing numbers. What he was able to accomplish back then, I mean, there was no pass interference,
Yeah.
penalties, and there was no roughing the passer unless you broke his arm, So I understand that the NFL has to protect the players. I mean, players nowadays are bigger, faster, stronger, and there's a lot of players from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that have serious health problems, concussions, and a poor quality of life because of it. But I think the NFL has kind of gone too extreme. And I think, actually, I wouldn't be surprised, and I've heard a lot of people say this in the national media. LeVar Arrington actually said this. I would not be surprised if one day we get to a point where it's basically the quarterback has a flag on his hip, and you the flag like flag football. I think it's kind of sad, and it makes me appreciate the players and the stats that they put up, back in the 80s and 70s and 60s more so than today.
Yeah. And they hinder defenses so much nowadays that to where they can't hardly even do much. Whereas even 10 years ago there was a lot more stuff that they could do defensively, to help out their team and stoppages go. It gets to a point now where there's not much you can do until you get to the red zone and actually use the the playing field to your advantage, to kind of make it a little bit harder for a defense to score. But up until you get to the red zone, some of these teams can just throw at will. It's really kind of discouraging. It's funny you bring up LeVar, because LeVar had mentioned on a show that I recall where he had been watching with a group of friends. They had watched some of the old Pittsburgh Steelers games, and he had mentioned Terry Bradshaw. It was kind of the era in which they were watching the games, and he said that he was foaming at the mouth and chomping at the bit. It's some of the things that the defensive players were allowed to do back then, some of the stuff that you could do to a quarterback or do to a wide receiver or do to your opponent that was just considered the norm. Whereas nowadays you're looking at getting slapped with a fine, possible ejection, and probably game suspension. So the game has definitely changed a lot.
Oh, definitely. I mean, could you imagine like Deacon Jones playing in the NFL today with the slap? That would go over well, And I mean, God, you look at Ronnie Lott or Rod Woodson, or you can even say Sean Taylor. What if Sean Taylor was still alive and playing? Now. I mean, if you think Brandon Merriweather's fines were bad, and I mean, Sean Taylor. I don't know if Sean Taylor could have played in today's NFL.
I don't know if he could either. I'm really kind of glad you mentioned that, because Sean Taylor in very, very quick fashion was able to establish himself in the league as a punishing hitter. And I had the pleasure of actually kind of watching him play live and seeing just how big that guy was, and people were afraid to go across the middle on that guy for a reason. And You want to talk about probably the epitome of a Redskins defensive back that hits a defenseless receiver back in the day when that was legal. He nailed people. I mean, he literally just drove them like a nail. The guy was a punishing hitter. And today, he wasn't exactly the individual that was known for following a lot of the rules and was always in the crosshairs of the league or the team, up until, obviously towards the very, very end there where he was kind of straightening out his act. But with today's rule changes and how they kind of hinder defenses, it would have been very difficult to see a guy like Sean Taylor get hampered by, the rule changes.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Now, the next couple series of questions I have are going to be some interesting ones because you and I are obviously West Coast fans. And I personally think there are obviously a lot of fans out there that are local fans of the team because they're from, the D.C. area. Mm. I think that coming from our perspective, we are fans pretty much in enemy territory. That's the way I've always kind of referred myself. We don't. You and I talk about all the time. You can't go into a sports store and find Redskins stuff. I mean, nothing. I mean, you might find a cup in the clearance rack, but as far as hats and T-shirts and stuff, you never see it. You're oversaturated with that, retarded blue star, everywhere. Right when you walk in the door, I'm seeing Tony Romo crap. And up until RG3 came into the league, there really wasn't anything that you were seeing that were Redskins related. Kind of relate to the people in your words. How difficult is it being a Washington Redskins fan for as long as you have been a fan, and yet being located in the Northwest?
Oh, it's been hard, because obviously we're not from Maryland, Virginia, or D.C. We're not from the DMV, so obviously, like you just mentioned, it's hard to get things without buying them on the internet. You can't go into a store unless you go to. I was shocked that I went to Kohl's and saw an RG3 jersey, and I actually got some. So that was cool, but it's hard, and obviously, I mean, you and I have been to a few Redskin games when they played Seattle. Yes. Unfortunately, both playoff losses, we were there. And I actually remember walking, I think I can't remember if I was walking with you or somebody else, but I remember there was a news anchor from a D.C. news station, and they asked me
which one it was, because I do.
I don't remember which one it was.
John Feinstein.
John Feinstein, that's right. That's right. And I remember him asking me, he said, "Hey, how was the flight from D.C.? When did you get into town?" Yeah. And I looked at him, and I'm like, I'm actually from here. And he goes, "You're from here, and you're a Redskin fan? Wow."
Yeah.
So
that was when he took his little notepad, folded it up, and tried to walk away.
Yeah. And then that's when you and I went and drank beers with Chris Cooley's dad in the parking lot. That was cool. Yeah. So no, but it's definitely challenging. You don't see a lot of Redskin stuff around here. Like you said, it's all Cowboys and Seahawks and Green Bay Packers. I can't believe there's this many Packer fans out here.
There's a ton of Packer fans out here.
I know, it's crazy, So it's definitely a challenge being 3,000 miles away from the East Coast and being a Redskin fan for sure.
Well, there was episode on 106.7 where they were talking about college traditions, and they were talking about fan experiences, and they were kind of going through some of the best mascots, some of the best experiences, and they were really kind of hitting on LeVar to kind of give his opinion on some of the best places that he had played collegiately. And he kind of meshed the collegiate experience along with the pro experience, and he went on to say that bar none, hands down, the loudest stadium that he had ever been in was Seattle. And that went above Michigan. That went above Penn State. It was definitely Seattle. And I found it ironic when he said that because you and I were at that game. We were sitting in the stands at that game. And my personal experience, and I've been to various different NFL games out there in different venues. I've been to the New Orleans Saints Stadium, and I'm going to another one here towards the end of the year down in Texas. I'll be going to a Houston game, but I have yet to experience anything quite like that. Kind of give us your impression of what it was like watching a game in that stadium as a Redskins fan, watching your team in the playoffs.
Well, it was awful when we were down by 2 touchdowns. Here's the thing. Most of your viewers probably are familiar with going to FedEx Field or going, maybe some of them have actually gone to Dallas or Philly or New York to watch the Redskins. And obviously, it's a divisional game, so it's a little more heated with the fans. But I'm telling all your viewers out there, honestly, the Seahawks fans are the worst fans in the NFL. I'm sorry, but they are. They're awful. This team, you know, I mean, you want to talk about. There's probably, I would guess, maybe 200 Redskin fans at that game. You're talking about a stadium that holds over 60,000. The last playoff game we were in. And I just remember walking down the steps in the stadium wearing a Sean Taylor jersey with you. And, I mean, we got chicken wings thrown at us. We got beer splashed on us. I mean, fans nowadays, they go a little too extreme, And I was shocked to see that the Seahawks fans out there were that brutal. But they most definitely were.
It was one of the most hostile environments. And what I mean by hostile, I mean, I'm obviously in the company of your friends and stuff, and there's not too many situations where people make me nervous. But in that environment, at that particular time, at that particular game, even because we went to 2 playoff games in Seattle, and we were at both of them. At least I was at both of them. But it was an environment where I felt a little worried about my personal well-being just being there, because and it's not like you and I were wearing a hat that said Redskins on it and that was it. I mean, we were decked out. I was decked out to the nines in Redskins gear that day, all the way down to my socks was burgundy and gold. And a lot of people will say, well, you probably brought it on yourself being dressed like that. But to be verbally berated in the fashion in which we were, a lot of it was way over the top. I mean, way over the top. You can express your distaste for the opposing team, but to the degree and to the level in which they take it there, and I hate to say it, but I have never experienced it anywhere else. I have actually experienced a football game at the NFL level where 2 opposing teams are playing each other, 2 opposing fan bases are facing off with each other, and there may be some heckling here, some heckling there, some finger pointing and some laughing, but I never experienced anything like what I experienced in Seattle, where it was absolutely, almost violently hostile, very hostile.
Yeah, it was, and there was some comments made. Like I said, the last game I was at, I was wearing a retro Sean Taylor jersey, and I mean, I got distasteful comments from people about him being dead and this and that. It was a little too extreme for my blood. Obviously, you got good people in there too, and there's people that drink too much and they get too belligerent and mouthy. But another thing that didn't help, by the way, is I totally remember that the native DC Redskin fans decided for whatever reason to put their tailgating tent right smack dab in the middle of all the Seahawks tailgaters. And I can't for the life of me figure that one out. I'll never be able to understand that. But you want to talk about a walk of shame. I mean, man, we had to walk.
It was in an alley, too.
Oh, terrible. Oh, my gosh. People honking their RVs at us, throwing chicken wings at us. I mean, it was bad.
That was one where we saw the dummies of the Redskin fans hung in effigy and straw all strewn about, and we're just like, oh, we're going to die in here. We're going to die.
Oh, yeah, and it started with us driving up the freeway, and we looked over and we saw a Joe Theismann jersey in a trunk with a doll with a head sticking out, and I'm thinking, oh, God, what are we doing? That was absolutely brutal. I tell you that, it was cool to be able to see your team play live, but I don't think I would ever do it again.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, I remember specifically when we went, we wanted to. One of the major influences, we obviously wanted to see our team play, and we didn't know necessarily how much longer Joe was going to be with us coaching. It was kind of obvious even then, and I remember that was a big motivating factor for us getting tickets and really kind of putting ourselves out there live in front of a whole bunch of Seahawks fans, was that it was our opportunity to see Joe coach, to see Joe live, and even though we were up in the nosebleed section, it was still kind of nice to say that we were there.
Right. Yeah. No, it was. And, I remember when I was 10 years old, I went to a Seahawks-Redskins game, and I remember I got to go, when they were playing in the Kingdom, I got to go out by where the buses were being loaded out. I got to get a whole bunch of autographs from players back then, like, Terry Allen.
Yeah.
And Desmond Howard.
Awesome.
And I remember that game. It was funny because Joey Galloway was a rookie for the Seahawks, and he had an amazing rookie year out of Ohio State. And I remember Darrell Green held him to 1 catch for 7 yards.
Awesome.
And people were screaming, Darrell, Darrell, Darrell. And that was being 10 years old and seeing that. And I remember seeing Jumpy Gathers and how massive he was. When you're a 10-year-old kid and you see a guy that's 6'8", 340 pounds.
He's a giant.
Yeah, he's a giant. So that was pretty cool. But other than that, I'd never go back to another Seahawk Redskin game, that's for sure.
So kind of bringing us up here to current events, and I know you're passionate about this. I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, what is your off-season grade for the Washington Redskins as far as free agency moves go?
You know, I think you're going to have to ask me this on another show because
probably.
Yeah, no, it's too much to get into. No, honest to God, I was thinking about this. I want you to answer that too in one of your shows and go into detail about it. But
yeah.
After 3 weeks, obviously it's different the way the Redskins have approached this, and you got to wonder how much of this is Bruce Allen, not having Shanahan there to make some of those moves and calls, and we're definitely a lot tighter with our wallets this year. Although, signing Lavallo to $4.5 million a year makes me scratch my head.
Yeah.
And the one, I told you this many times, the one that I can't stand is letting Mike Mitchell of Carolina go to Pittsburgh for $2.5 million.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, we needed a safety so bad. That guy had an incredible year last year. And then you and I were talking about Ryan Clark, bringing him in at safety, but he wanted a lot of money. So you wonder what he wanted and what we're willing to pay. We haven't had a marquee signing. Everybody we've signed has a niche to play special teams and contribute mostly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Andre Roberts, obviously, he's a decent slot receiver. He's got decent speed. He's a 4.39 guy, which is good.
Good.
But he's not a very big receiver, and so you got to wonder with Hankerson and Pierre Garçon, being your 1 and 2, and Hankerson's obviously injured. Santana Moss is your slot, and he's small too. So the way we've approached this free agency is obviously we got a lot of holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball and special teams. So I get some of that. I also think that Jason Hatcher coming on from Dallas, to me, can he bolster our pass rush? I mean, a lot of people say, well, he had 11 sacks last year. Yeah, but he was in a 4-3 front.
Yep, in a different scheme.
Yeah, it's a different scheme. So, Jason Hatcher, too, he's 32 years old.
Yeah.
So, I haven't really liked a lot of the signings as far as other players coming back. We had to resign Perry Riley. Arakpo, he's a good player, but I don't think he's worth the money. I just don't think 1.5, And you got to wonder, if we didn't tag Arakpo, you could say, well, we'd have another hole if he walked. Yeah, but how many more holes could we have filled, So it's been interesting. If I was going to grade it, if I was going to give the Redskins so far a grade in free agency after 3 weeks, honestly, I'd have to say maybe a D.
Okay.
I mean, call me Naysayer, call me investment. I would definitely say a D. Okay. So before you go on to your show that you're going to do, that I want you to do about free agency, if you were going to give them a grade, what would you give them?
My opinion is a little bit different. I would say I'm kind of borderline between B and C, only because I'm really tired of winning the off-season Super Bowl. I'm not a big. I think I've been turned off so much to the big-time off-season acquisition, or the big-time off-season acquisition of a player who was formerly good that just wants to come here and retire off the money. That Albert Hainsworth thing, in my opinion, was scarring to this organization, and was a huge indication that we really, really need to change our thinking. I'm a firm believer in building your team through the draft and supplementing for the couple places that you need through free agency. And unfortunately, you just can't start that concept and be successful. It's going to take a little bit of time to do that. It's going to take a lot of discipline. And I think a lot of us Redskin fans have been force-fed that big-time off-season acquisition for so long that's kind of what we've been accustomed to. So I would give them a little bit higher of a rating, because I love how we have been frugal. And we've kind of held back and said we put in a dollar value on certain players and know that we will not go beyond a certain price. We've been very, very good at competing or negotiating against ourselves. And I haven't seen that this year, so that has given me a glimmer of hope.
Okay, but remember, I want you to remember this before. I want you to think about this before you recant that statement. Is that right now our starting safeties are Brandon Merriweather and Bakari Rambo.
Yep.
So do you want to change your grade? Because I'm sorry, but I mean I don't see us as far as the back end's concerned, and you know D'Angelo had a decent year last year, but and then, of course you got Amerson. Phil Thomas is coming off a bad injury.
Yep.
So I look at that and I definitely think the draft. Hopefully we get some gems there that we could develop over time because
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith in our secondary.
Yeah,
Right now.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in our secondary either. But then again, there's a lot of other positions out there that we really, really need a lot of work on. I mean, there's a ton of positions, and I would like to think that somewhere in the back of my mind, in the pit of Redskins Park, that we've got a game plan, and that game plan is attributed to a budget. Because that's the only way we're going to get out of this and be able to fill or maximize a lot of the deficiencies that we have on not only offense but defense. Like you said, we focus a lot on the defense, but our offense isn't really all that much better either. And there's a lot of holes we're trying to fill there, and we can't really, we can't go out and start spending lavishly to fill one or two holes when you've got 12 holes to plug. So I kind of like our approach. We were not going to fix every single necessity in the off season with the money that we had. It just wasn't going to happen. And it sucks that there were some really quality safeties out there that we could have taken. I'd like to think it was for a purpose. I'm a little bit more optimistic, so I guess.
You think?
Yeah. But going on to the final 6 questions here, man. We're going to be winding down the show here, and these are a series of questions that I'll be pretty much asking everybody that's on the show. So, to kind of fire it off here, who's your favorite Redskin of all time?
Darrell Green. That's easy, hands down. Best corner ever to play the position in the game.
Darrell
sure.
Green's your man.
Darrell Green is my man. Yep. Always has been. 28.
Yep. Great guy. Great ambassador for the team. Great player.
Man, I only wish his son Jason Green would pan out to be a good. I wish he had some of his dad's talents there, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Franchise administrator for a day. If you had your magic wand of infinite possibilities, what is the one thing that you would change about this football team?
The name. I got congressmen that are paying me off for saying that.
I guess so. You got people of the couple Indian tribes out there that are furnishing your Lexus in the driveway right now.
Yeah, I gave them 2 coats and a shovel, so I'm reaching out and giving back to the community. No, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. If I could wave a magic wand, I would. Oh God, I'd bring Joe Gibbs back, but make him 20 years younger.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing. I mean, Gibbs obviously brought a lot of stability that we've never had since him. Even the second time around, he wasn't as successful, but
and credibility.
Yeah, credibility. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So the next 2 questions that I got are going to be kind of set up here together. Let's say that big division rivalry game, big matchup, primetime television, reputation's on the line. Is there any type of superstitions that you have going into a game of this magnitude? Are you guys like put Tootsie Rolls in your sock? Do you do 3 circles and then sprinkle salt over your shoulder? And is there any specific routines or anything that you like to do to get ready for a particular matchup like this?
Shotgun 2 beers and have a Tylenol.
Not a bad one, actually.
No, I'm kidding.
Prepare you for anything that happens at the end of that game.
No, actually I do. You know this. I have a Redskins helmet I put out in the living room, and I kind of kiss it for good luck. And then I have a Redskins doll that my grandma.
Remember that?
Yeah, the Redskins doll. My grandma got me in a garage sale. It's like from the 1939. It's
vintage doll.
Vintage doll. Vintage Redskins. Got one big feather down the center. So I break that thing out and I put it on top of the couch and try to channel the gods. But you know what, man? I wanted to throw that doll last year. So
get rid of that helmet.
Oh, that helmet. I can't believe it didn't go through my 60-inch plasma. I'm telling you, more than a few times.
So kind of going along with the same question here, is there any particular preferred venue, environment, or experience as far as this game goes that that you prefer? Are you a type of person that likes to go out to a particular place with particular people, or is there any preference that you have to witness a game like this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would watch it at home so I don't get arrested for vandalism after we lose. No, no, I don't like going to bars and watching on the Sunday ticket, obviously, because I mean, it's kind of cool to have a adult beverage and good food and watch it. But around here, we're surrounded by Seahawk fans anyway, so
Yeah.
obviously, I'd probably watch it at home. I mean, going to a live game too. I don't know how people can afford it nowadays. Everything's so expensive.
Absolutely.
You got to deal with the elements unless you're in a dome, and that can be bad, especially if it's snowing like crazy on the East Coast. So definitely, I prefer watching games in the comfort of my own reclining luxury chair and looking over at you and watching that calm demeanor as we're down 34 points.
We're down 30 points.
Yeah, it's the first quarter, like the Green Bay game.
Yeah.
Or
the end of the Kansas City game.
Yeah, and my neighbors all know me real well because I've been known to run outside and scream at the top of my lungs.
And they're Seahawk fans.
Yeah, they're Seahawk fans. Yeah.
Go figure.
Well, the two hippies across the street actually like the Saints, I think. But yeah.
Last question, yet the most important question.
All right.
Okay, Daniel Snyder has just uploaded this video, and in a short. What advice would you give to him as the illustrious owner of this team? What advice would you give him if he was watching this video?
If he's the advice I would give Daniel Snyder if he was watching this video.
Yeah.
You're talking about the talented, all-knowing, multi-billion-dollar Dan Snyder watching your video on the list. Yeah. No, I would say, Dan, hire a GM. That's step one, and definitely step away from the team. Let the football guys make the decisions with the GM and the coach. And if you want to go out and if you want to sign autographs and talk to the fans and kiss babies and all that stuff with Bruce Allen, then go ahead.
Yeah.
But other than that, stay out of the headlines. He's got a real mess on his hands now too with this whole thing he formed for Native Americans because it doesn't look very good to a lot of people. And there's a lot of things that it'll be interesting to see if the Redskins will have to change their name in the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's definitely an episode that's coming up too.
Right, and he kind of thumbed his nose at Congress and thumbed his nose at a lot of media out there about he will never change the name. The way he handled it was way wrong.
Yep.
It actually did a lot more harm than good. So, Snyder needs to step back and just let a real GM and coach handle the team.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for us, man. I want to thank you for coming on the show and being a guest, giving us the opportunity to kind of get an idea of exactly who you are as far as some future shows that I got coming out where you're going to be obviously segmenting a couple of those during those shows. So I want to thank you for coming out.
Hey, you know what? I really appreciate you having me on your show, and I'm sure all your viewers out there are just totally intrigued by the Naysayer out in Washington. They're probably going, "Oh my God, I had to listen to 35 minutes of this," and I don't blame them. I get that look from my wife all the time. So yeah, no. Hey, BFG, thanks for having me on your show. I look forward to contributing and being on in the future. And yeah, go Skins.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, we'll catch you guys later. Peace out.